Hey, Blockchain Bernie here with my latest episode. This one is about the new Xandeum devnet setup. So the new Xandeum devnet is going to start in January, and I'll dive into the details on how it's all going to work. This is not about the incentives. Be sure it is an incentivized devnet, but it's the DAO to decide how the incentives work. There will be incentives paid in XAND tokens, in the real XAND tokens, of course, not some, worthless devnet XAND tokens. And but this video is about this whole setup here, the VNodes, the PNodes, and some other components that you might not have heard of. So make sure you watch this video all the way to the end, and make sure you destroy that like button for me, because it really helps the YouTube algorithm and helps spread the word. It also gives you points, by the way. All right, so with that new devnet setup, we are going to have the VNodes and the PNodes. So the VNodes are the validator nodes, and the PNodes are the storage provider nodes. So that's the whole innovation of Xandeum, offloading storage of scalable data, of large amounts of data, to that separate set of PNodes that is supervised by the validators. So with this new architecture that we have, it's all 100% built on top of Solana, which means in our new devnet, it will be the unmodified Agave validator software that's going to be running there. We're going to be updating it on a regular basis. And then on the PNodes, of course, there will be our PNode software that's going to be developed step by step. It has a user interface called XandMiner. That's a web interface. We've already developed a good part of it. It's going to be part of that on that devnet, along with what we call the PNode daemon, PNode D, which is the software that communicates especially with the Xandeum-enabled RPC nodes. So with these RPC nodes, they are kind of the access nodes to the blockchain. And these RPC nodes on Solana, they also run the normal validator software, which right now is, mostly on mainnet, the Agave software. So Agave is just that new validator software developed by Anza, and Anza is a spin-off of Solana Labs, but it is basically the same as the pure Solana validator software. So we're going to run that natively, not in a modified version as we had with that Xandeum Classic version. We have these validators there, our own devnet with those vNodes. And then in addition to that, we have the PNodes as part of that devnet, right? The devnet is the whole thing. It's going to have the vNodes, but also have the PNodes. And we need, a few hundred of these to start with. And then there is a few other components in there. There is that supervision aspect, supervising the PNodes, sending them challenges to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. This is an optional stage that we do after we have our MVP, right? MVP stands for minimum viable product. So, and before that, we have 3 stages. We have what we call a spike, an architecture spike. That's like a drill down through all the layers of the architecture, and to have a proof of concept that we have, all the layers of that architecture working. So I can't wait for that milestone to happen, and I will absolutely let you know once we have that architecture spike, or AS, once we have that ready, right? By the way, as you all know, I grew up in Germany. When I worked in IBM Germany, we call that architecture spike an Architekturdurchstich, right? So that's kind of a very nice German word. I'll never forget that. Then after that, we have the WOP. The WOP is the working prototype, right? The working prototype is super important. That will enable us to actually open that devnet for you guys and pay out the incentives for the incentivized devnet. And then after the WOP, we are going to have the the MVP, right? And MVP is a very well-known term for software startups of all kinds. It's the minimum viable product, and viable, of course, means, well, it's something that real people can use. So we can actually write code on top of that minimum viable product to use the storage layer and try it all out and run our own demo apps, Xandipedia being one of them, on that minimum viable product. So can't wait for all that. And then there are some other components, because most of the modification in that validator software is going to be in the RPC component, right? So the RPC, the RPC endpoints that will be understood by these RPC nodes, that's going to be extended to understand these Xandeum specific transactions. And and then that means Xandeum programs can only run when the apps send their transactions to a Xandeum enabled RPC node. And then in the RPC, we will intercept these Xandeum specific instructions and then handle them in that RPC together with the PNodes, and we will use the Solana security layer by having the PNode database, the PNDB, in Solana accounts that stores all sorts of metadata about the PNodes. So, and there we have a few Xandeum programs. We have the Xandeum program, which I'll go through in a different video. We have the Xand Shield program. So that's going to be a whole different video of its own. So watch out for that one. The Xand Shield, super important thing. And yeah, and with the PNode supervision, that's something that's going to run on those vNodes as an optional component. And later on, when it all runs on Solana mainnet, the Solana mainnet validators will have an option to run this PNode supervision. We also call this the SUP nodes, right? The SUP for supervising nodes, supervisory nodes, SUP nodes. So, and these SUP nodes, they run on the validator, on the same machine as as the validator, but it is a separate component, and that's why we almost call them SUP nodes as a different node, but it usually runs on the same hardware and it does that supervision. But here's the good news. We're going to build that as a sidecar, right? So it doesn't have to be a modified validator code. That's only on the RPC side. On the normal non-RPC validators, we can run the plain vanilla Solana validator software and can run our supervision software, the SUP nodes, as a sidecar on that same hardware as the validator. And that has great advantages, because that way we can have, faster adoption among those Solana validators once the product is ready, because they don't need to maintain just another version of the validator software and stuff like that. They can just run the PNode supervision as a sidecar along with their validator. And this is all going to be stake weighted, so it's not like just a different piece of software. It will, work together with the validator and utilize the stake that the validator has accumulated over time. And this makes it all secure. Yeah, so this is the whole setup of the upcoming DevNet. There's going to be a few more videos about some of the components that are part of it, so it's all coming together. I hope, you all can't wait for it as much as I can't. And yeah, this was my little overview today about the whole DevNet setup. Don't forget to give me that like button and give me some comments, because this is like important stuff, right? We might have DAO proposals to to vote about, some things in that aspect here. So make sure you think about all these things here and leave me your comments and questions right there. For today, though, thanks so much for listening, and catch you guys later. Peace.